Hello everyone, and welcome to the Reddit Railway. My name is Victor, and I'll be your driver. Today's destination is r/nuclear revenge, so all aboard! It was in the early 90s and I was in my 20s, working as an electrician with my best friend. We were known as the Hawkeye and Trapper team of our crew, old MASH reference, and we kept everyone on the job site laughing and in good spirits, even in the worst of times. We were working on constructing a new elementary school and had been on site since the very beginning. We were 2 weeks away from Punch-Out. That's where construction is complete and inspections are done looking for any flaws or corrections that need to be made. The superintendent over the whole construction site was a major jackhole and had been since day one. He was new and wanting to make a name for himself. It was his first time running a job and he made several mistakes and always blamed others. Remember me mentioning worst of times? He constantly cut corners to save on cost, which would turn around and bite him later on. He had gotten several good hands fired. He would run good contractors off the job and bring in his friends to replace them. The drywallers, painters, and half the plumbers were a couple of examples. He was a total jackhole to us electricians as well, wanting us to work overtime but not willing to pay for it. He really wanted to keep us behind so that he could charge the company fines. Our small company finally brought in a couple of extra hands, which pissed him off even more because we were starting to catch up. By the time Christmas rolled around, we were ahead of everyone else, and as mentioned, the job was nearing punch-out status. 2 weeks before Christmas, my friend's car, we carpooled, lost its rear end, and we missed 2 days of work repairing it. The jackhole superintendent saw this as an opportunity. He tried to kick us off the property himself, but since he had no legal means, he tried to have our foreman run us off, citing we were unsafe and a distraction. His argument was dismissed since, as I mentioned, we were ahead of everyone else. It was the day before Christmas Eve, our last day before we would be off for the holiday. The superintendent knew our supervisor, who was visiting that day, was deathly afraid of snakes. Earlier that day, a small rattlesnake was killed after it had been found hibernating beneath a porta-john. Gotta love Texas. The jackhole superintendent had brought a cooler of beer for his crew for when the day ended. Well, our supervisor made his rounds, inspecting our work and talking to our foreman. Since we were his last stop, he was ready to leave and start his holiday. The superintendent told him to have a beer and pointed out the cooler. Our supervisor opened the lid to the cooler and had a heart attack. Literally, the dead snake was inside. When the EMTs finally cleared him, the supervisor was telling him that he saw me and my friend at the cooler earlier that day and blamed us. We had been under the foreman's nose all day. Half of it was with the supervisor. He was aware of the jackhole's tricks and didn't give in to the demands to fire us. My friend and I did not take kindly to our supervisor being harmed or getting blamed for it. Do to us what you will, but do not harm those we respect. Now for the nuclear revenge. Like I said, it was the last day of work before the Christmas holiday. We had Christmas Eve and Christmas Day off. After work, my friend and I drove to a bait shop and picked up a gallon of Catfish Charlie. For those who don't know, catfish are attracted to really foul odors, and Catfish Charlie was one of the stinkiest baits used to catch them. We drove back to the school and around to where the air handler was. This is the main environmental unit for commercial buildings. We opened up the main intake duct and dumped the whole bucket of Catfish Charlie in before closing it back up. For good measure, we also added about 1.5 pints of water and stirred it into a thinner paste so that it wouldn't dry out quickly. Even though we're longtime smokers, we both learned we could hold our breath for up to 2 minutes that day. Neither of us could see for about 10 minutes afterwards due to the tears, and it was a miracle we didn't lose the contents of our stomachs. Even in Texas, winters can get cold, and this was a particularly chilly winter. It even snowed on Christmas, which maybe happens once every 10 to 15 years. Remember, this was Wednesday, and we had Christmas Eve and Christmas Day off. Then there was the weekend. 4 full days for that stink bait to stew in the running heating system. Come to find out, the jackhole superintendent and his cronies had forgotten to lower the main thermostat before leaving for the long winter holiday weekend. It was left at 75 degrees Fahrenheit that whole weekend. On Monday morning, my friend and I pulled up to quite the scene. Martians on all fours seemed to be littering the ground of the school, spewing projectile vomit everywhere. There was an ambulance and 3 fire trucks on the scene. The firemen were in full rubbers, including respirators, running around everywhere. All of the doors and windows of the school were open, with giant fans venting the buildings. The air was putrid, and we turned green upon exiting the vehicle. "Oh, holy fuck!" was all I could say. What the hell happened here? Our boss was sitting on the hood of his car next to ours, his breakfast artfully painted on the ground. The jackhole superintendent and a couple of his guys were in the back of the ambulance on oxygen as they had taken the full brunt upon opening the building. The smell had permeated everything. and I mean everything. The school, besides the cafeteria, was fully carpeted. The drop ceilings were of the fiberglass type, as well as the insulation, so they absorbed the smell. The walls that weren't cinder blocked were papered and unpainted. Since the inner ductwork was the insulated type, all of that had to be replaced as well. The damage ran up in the tens of millions of dollars. Also, a fence had to be erected to prevent such a thing from happening again. Come to find out, the superintendent had skimped on the insurance and pocketed the money, so it fell to his company to cover all of the costs. All of his underhanded dealings came to light in the end as well. In addition to losing his job and contractor's license forever, he was arrested. Our boss never said anything, but due to the way he always grinned at us after that day, I think he suspected we had something to do with that. He never turned us in and put us in for a big raise. Since the smell didn't permeate any of our stuff and our jobs were complete anyway, the plumbers, electricians and pipe fitters were spared from having to re-enter that mess. It's been nearly 30 years since, so I guess the statutes of limitations are up and I can safely tell this story. I want to admit that I do feel ashamed for doing it. Being young and dumb is a great excuse, but a good contractor service went bankrupt and a lot of jobs were lost in the end. And from what I hear, the school still has a foul odor even today. Well, about 18 years ago from what I heard. Yeah, we expected to stink up the place, but did not expect such a result. Edit 1. I just want to note from a question in the comments, during that time construction was experiencing a major boom. One could quit or lose their job and be working at another company within the hour, generally earning more money. Edit 2. Also brought to my attention in the comments, true, EMTs cannot clear someone from a heart attack. I should have worded it better. The EMTs did stabilize my supervisor. He refused to go to the hospital, wanting to be home for Christmas. Since the EMTs could not force him when they got his vitals stabilized, they left. A week later, an EKG did confirm the heart attack. He was admitted to the hospital for double bypass surgery. Edit 3. Okay, hopefully the last edit. A lot of people want to know if the school still stinks today. I called my brother since he lives down there and I'm no longer in the area. I learned that my friend lied to me 18 years ago when he said it still did. My brother said that 5 years after the incident and many complaints, the school was torn down and rebuilt. Okay, this was well and truly overboard. I know getting revenge can be satisfying and even warranted at times. I wouldn't have had a problem if they dumped the catfish Charlie on the superintendent's car or something like that. Nobody else would have been affected, but by OP's own admission, people lost their jobs and businesses closed down. Not to mention the very thing they helped build had to be demolished, so kids were denied a school. But that's the thing about nuclear warfare, you have to worry about the fallout as well as the explosion. But what do you guys think? Was OP justified or did they overreact? Sound off down below. Anyway, we've come to the end of our journey. Thank you for traveling on the Reddit Railway, and we hope to see you again soon.